We didn't do too good because we have to do 2 extra pit stops, and then if we haven't had to do those pit stops, we would have been 30 to 50 seconds within the leader, and we would have potentially scored a lot of points by finishing within 6 or less. You can see our driver pitted in the first lap, and then you can see the reason is because the rear ring was broken. And then because we pitted in the first lap and our strategy doesn't allow extra pit stops, so at the end we had to pit an extra time because we had low fuel, because we didn't have the correct fuel for the strategy if we pitted once and the strategy shifts. You can see Tomase last race, he had an accident at the start and he didn't finish the race at all. So you can see we started on pole position, and then Tomase is behind us. And then you can see because he takes very high risk at the race start, he has a collision with us or something, and that causes both of us to go into the pits to change the rear wing. So he potentially did not finish last race and had an accident at start because he has max risk settings for race start. We have 1 click lower than max settings for race start, and next time we have to reduce the risk a little bit more for the race start to prevent a reoccurrence. Tomase hasn't learned his lesson yet, because last race he hasn't finished the race because of the accident at the start, and this race he didn't reduce his risk setting at the start, and that causes both of us to pit in the first lap. Luckily we are still able to finish the race, otherwise it would have been way worse, and then we don't get much or any money if we don't finish the race. So there isn't really much to see at all in the race, and I don't have any highlights other than not having a good race. You can see that our best lap time was 34.23, but our actual best lap time will be around 34.7 because he did that 34.3 at the last few laps when he had very low fuel and fresh tires. Otherwise he was not able to do that very fast lap time. And you see other people who did 2 stops, he did 33.8 and 33.3, 33. Most of the people who finished at top who did 2 stops had a much better best lap time than us, so that's why we weren't able to have a good finish. If our driver didn't have the mistake, the accident at the start, and we finish 6 or less, because we know that our pit stop is about 45 seconds, and we subtract that from our time, we finish around 6 or better, then that would be phenomenal, because everyone else are doing like 33.3 and they're doing 2 stops, and our strategy were 3 stops. You can see Marek, the leader of our group with the most points, he did a 1 stop and he did the best lap of 34.1, and our best lap time with 3 stops is 34.7, so our car is no way near the performance of theirs. However, when you look at our car level, we have the fastest car right now, but last race we weren't the fastest car, but we were about top 5. But our car was still faster than the top contenders. So potentially it's because the driver has more concentration and they're able to put out that better lap time than us. Our driver has a lot of experience to try and minimize the car wear and do better mid-season instead of having instant results. You can see that from testing we gained a lot of points. We gained 7 power, 7 acceleration and 3 handling, and took 3 races and right now it took effect. That's why we are number 1 in the car performance chart. I had a look at the car wear, and if we want to do testing, we'll have to replace the engine, brake, gearbox and electronics, and that costs around 12 million, so we don't have enough money to do more testing this race. So what we're going to do is only replace the part that needs to be replaced to finish the race. You can see that we only need to replace the brakes and electronics, and then I talk about why saving money is important, even if it's a little bit, like $1 million or so, because if you can delay the car part change for another race, you get another $7 million or so if your part can last a race longer. And then even if you only save $1 million, being able to delay changing a part for another race, you can have much more performance in the car because you have extra $7 million to do things with. That's why having a driver able to reduce car wear and save us money is very important for midterm results. We could potentially reduce our brake level to 1 and then upgrade it again next race, so we don't even need to change the brakes. But then doing that, we won't be able to get instant results and get instant points. And getting points early on is important. Otherwise, we'll have a lot of pressure, and we may not be able to make up the difference in points at the end of the season and can't promote. Contrarily, if we look at too much of short-term performance, then we won't be able to make points later on in the season, and then we also won't be able to promote. But we've done many testing labs and all of that, so we've already invested heavily. We invested heavily, spending a lot of money to get our car performance. It does make sense to reduce money and save some, but looking at the past 2 races, we have a very good performance and we're fighting for the top position. So it does make sense to actually upgrade the car and get points now, because the higher you finish, the more revenue you get, and that covers the costs. If we have a look at our car performance, it's 34, 30, 34. And then let's assume we downgrade our brakes to save money. Only lose 2 points in handling if we downgrade our brakes to save money. So that's a good choice. And we can see if we downgrade our brakes to level 1, we would have enough wear to finish the race. And then we can save a lot of money. Although this current race is somewhat performance based, having 2 more points in handling isn't going to make all that much of a difference. We'd rather save the money. You can see it's 1 million to replace the brakes with level 3, but we still want to save some money. And we just updated our car. Now we can see our car type is a balance, because we did a bit more testing in acceleration and power. Because normally at mid-season your wings and the aero will be a higher level because it's cheaper to replace them, and it's cheaper to upgrade and it lasts longer. So it's important to have a balanced car so you have good performance overall. Right now it's not all that balanced because we're still early season, but later on we will keep the engine around level 1 to 3, gearbox 1 to 3, and the wing should be around 4 to 2, 4 to 3, and then we'll have very good balance. We also see that our sponsor negotiation needs attention because we progress in the sponsorship, and we have to choose a place to put our advertisement. If we put on the engine cover or the wings, I think it makes the most money. Luckily we didn't choose nose, otherwise it will overlap with the sponsor and then we wouldn't have the money instantly. And you don't get to change your decision after you made a decision. And we're also going to reduce the negotiation to very low on the other sponsors, so only focusing on one sponsor for now, so we can get money quicker. We're going to train our driver to do yoga because he made a mistake this race, so we need the consistency. Mistakes are very costly and it reduces our lap time by a lot. You can see from the race replay we had one mistake and he went off track by himself, and then our concentration is 113 after the race, and after doing yoga now it's 117, so we gained 4 points. So I think the less concentration, the more points you get when you do yoga. Surprisingly, our driver is gaining reputation every race, though there's nothing special with this race result. And then he's not gaining any more experience because he already has very high experience. Finishing the race or having a technical problem and finishing low in the race is detrimental to driver motivation, and he potentially may not gain as much stats from the race. Surprising, even with a very poor race result, our staff motivation went from 20 to 23. Since we have some extra money, we're going to do some efficiency training so our staff can have a balanced stats. You can see after the training our staff salary instantly went up by 30,000, but that's very little. And improving the stats now is somewhat important because they do have points coming in, and then more efficiency would mean more performance. You can see our driver loses concentration every race. It's because of his higher age of 40, but we still have a good driver with overall, and we still have the best staff out of everyone because we are focusing heavily on testing, and we need to upgrade the staff to get the results. You can see the leaders in our current group have a lot of money in their bank, but that doesn't mean anything because you can't extract the performance, and you might struggle mid-race even with money, and it takes too long to upgrade the car. And if you suddenly upgrade, then you would upgrade the parts that are new without use, and then you lose a lot of money and efficiency. And at the start of the season, it's always important to spend a lot of money, if not all the money you can, so you can get points early on, and then mid-season you can start to save money. And upgrading car, it's too expensive to keep the car parts at a higher level, so you have to do testing to save money and can have an overall quicker car and run cheaper parts. And after you promote to amateur, if you don't have any testing points for a car, then you'll be very slow and you'll struggle, and then it's almost impossible to promote at the first season in amateur, the next class. But then if you do a few more seasons and you do a lot of testing, then you have a lot of car points and car performance, and then you'll eventually promote. You can see out of everyone, we're the only person who has done more than 180 laps of testing, and all the people with top points have not done any testing, and the car will be lagging behind a lot in performance. Because we didn't finish well this race, we didn't gain any extra points, otherwise we could potentially be around 7th or 4th place and we look very good in the standings. But 11 versus 4 points to go to 4th place and promote, it's still a very small gap, so we still have all the chances to promote. And even if we scored 0 points for these first 3 races because we are focusing heavily on testing and mid-season performance, we will still have a good chance of promoting. We have this cup standings with our own group of managers. In the last race we were lucky to be able to beat him because we had to do 2 extra pit stops. cup rival is denoted by the purple color, and he didn't have any errors, but he was around 10 seconds slower than us, so we're lucky to even be able to beat him. Otherwise we're used to in the cup standings. Cup standings might get you a little bit more money, but it's mostly neglectable. Even with all of the errors we made, surprisingly we still able to finish top 3 in our own racing team. We can check the calculator after we updated our car parts with all the weight as well within value. We know that this race is going to be a rain start and then it turns dry. We already have entered the tire weight and fuel values from our calculator tool. We also entered the fuel consumption values. And we know that it's relatively unlikely that the rain stops within 4 laps. And then it's certain that after 30 minutes the rain will stop. Based on that information, we have calculated the minimum and the maximum amount of rain laps. We know that it takes about 9 minutes for the track to dry up after the rain stops, and then you also use that to determine the time frame and the amount of laps we need to cover the dry. And then the time it takes for the track to dry up is about 4 to 9 laps, and we already entered all those values. We figured out that the maximum amount of remaining dry laps would be 64, and the minimum would be 42 laps, and the average is 53. And then based off that, we looked at a few strategies to do 2 stops or 1 stop after that. And then we also changed our compensation tool of difference in fuel load versus the time gain, because if you look at during a race, there might be 20 to 30% of the last few laps of each tire you have the same fuel load as any other tire, and then you don't gain any time for doing more pit stops. So if we take that into account and do some mathematics, then you can see approximately we'll only gain 28 to 34 seconds if we went from 1 to 2 stop, and it takes 45 seconds to make 1 pit stop. And we also have a compensation for tires, and we assume the same value from going to soft to extra soft, so that also accounts for tire. We're going to enter the car wear throughout the race into our calculator tool, so we can compensate for the car wear in our final race setup. And then we're going to find the setup for this race. And then we're going to change the setup and we're going to test again. We did 27.7 and the best qualifying time is 25.7, so our car has very good performance and we're up there right now. Since we do not need to look at the difference between soft and harder tires, we're going to do 4 laps before we look at the wing split. And then we entered the final setup and we're looking for different wing splits. You can see if we want a more wing split, it's out of range and we can't enter more than 999. You can see that going from 70 to 60 wing split, we lost a bit of time, so we should be using 80 wing split. We're going to use a 85 wing split because 110 compared to 70 had a similar time, and we lost time when we went from 70 to 60. And then we're going to do Q1 We're going to use the hard tire for the race. We're 1.7 seconds off from the best qualified managers out of 800, but that's actually top 62, so that's quite good already. You know, the max amount of rain laps for the first stint will be 30, and then we're going to give them 33 laps of fuel for the first stint. We entered the fuel value. We entered Q2 is 5 degrees hotter than Q1, and we already entered the settings. Qualified quite good overall, and overall is 84, and we're about 1.5 seconds slower than Q1 and Q2 because we have the higher fuel load. Qualified top 84 out of 740, so we would expect to have a good race result again this race. Our teammates have not qualified yet, so we can't compare. We also have to reduce his risk for this race because there's some raining laps. So we're only going to reduce his risk by 3 points because there's also some dry laps at the end of the race. And we're going to disable all of the boost laps. We need to do 67 laps total to cover the 64 remaining laps of the minimum amount of wet laps. And then we already entered 34 and 33 liters of fuel into the strategy. Going to reduce his risk at the start of the race to prevent any accidents at the start. Also just realized that the difference in temperature and the compensation values are different from dry versus wet, and we used the dry values, so we lost a little bit of time there. We've also entered the final setup for the race, and we're going to use a dry setup. We're not going to use setups in between because if it's slightly off the optimal setting, then you might lose a lot of time. It's not a linear reduction, so you want to pick either one of the setup. If we look at a different group in our same class, they did 27.1 and 30.0, a similar time to us. This group, the time is 29.3 and 31. Another group is 29 and 32. And another one is 37 and 38. So if we look at our overall qualifying time, it's relatively likely that we're going to qualify top 3, if not qualify number 1.